well, we'll get started. So, welcome to the OPSM podcast. We have at the bottom of the screen, we have Thor from Helsinki, Finland, head coach there. And then we also on the left hand of the screen, we have OPSM rep, also GM, Jesse Falanga. So yes, we want to thank you for being on the show with us.
Transitioning from a goalkeeper coach to a full-time coach, what was that like?
Well, I was really lucky to get under the wings of an Icelandic coach who worked in several clubs in Norway with Brandbergen and with Lillestrøm and in Lyn at that time. Former professional in top league in France. Very experienced guy. So I got the chance to work with him, and then we developed our partnership through the years. And so then I made the step up from goalkeeper coach to assistant coach, and then I remember it was like a big day for me. The day he came and said, "Well, let's hire a goalkeeper coach," because from then I knew that now I could focus fully on the team and the other players together with him, and we had another guy taking the goalkeepers. So it evolved, and we worked together for 7 years in 3 different clubs. So if I could offer an advice to you younger coaches, because when you are inside, even if Norway is not it's not a top level European football nation, but it was professional football, and when you have a foot inside there and you're a young coach, you will get offers to become maybe head coach also at lower level. I did that at least for 2nd division and 3rd division, and even there they could offer full-time. The players would not be full-time then, but they could offer full-time position for a coach. But I always turned that down, because I was thinking that when I have a foot inside on the highest level, it's better to be there as an assistant or serving in some other position than breaking out and become a head coach too early. At least for me, I think it was a good choice.
And so from moving on from there, you had a time spent with many different teams. We know that you had a promotion year with, I believe, Sandefjord, if I can say it like that. Then you guys did well the 2nd year. What was that like? Guiding
well,
it?
that was really good for me, because then I was ready. Then I'd been an assistant from 1992 until 2005. So when I finally took the chance and became a head coach, I was more than ready to say. I really wanted it. And I got the chance. Sandefjord is neighbor city to my hometown here in Norway. And they've lost the promotion relegation playoff. They came from the division under and lost it 2 years in a row. And then the 3rd year they ended like number 4, and people were saying, so they missed the promotion relegation spot as well. So they had 2 really good years in 2002 and 3, and then 2004 they were number 4, I think, and that was from being one of the favorites. That was a bad year for them, and then they brought me in, and the expectations were a little bit lower, because they had, people thought they had the peak and that they were on the way down, but we managed to turn that around, and we went up the first year, and the 2 former the 2 times they had been playing for it, they had come from a 3rd position where you had to do to play one of the poorer teams from the league above, but this time we managed to be number 2, which secured the direct promotion.
So then coming into the team, what changes did you make?
At that time, I think my style of football was the key. That they had been playing under a really good coach, playing 4-3-3 in a very strict manner where everything was, how to explain, it was not a lot left for creativity for the individual. It was very strict how to play out from the back and so on, and they practiced it a lot. And they were really strong at it, but I felt that the team had reached a certain level, but they couldn't make the next step. And when I came in, I turned many things around. We started to play 4-4-2, which this was a young club as well. They hadn't been doing that before at all. And I brought my style of football, which was a lot of more risk taking, high pressing high up the field. And I had that was my football, just because this was how we did it when I was working with the Icelandic coach. And his influence again was back from Sweden, where he had also been. And then we are back in the mid 80s when Hifk Gothenburg won the European Cup for the first time with the 4-4-2, high pressing, straight lines, a lot of running, a lot of fighting. So I think my influence was through him already from back there, but he then again played himself in France, so his coaching methods and his training methods were much more sophisticated. So I think we at that time we had a great mix of different styles and different approaches, and it suited Sandefjord really well when I came, and it was quite a clear break to what they have been doing before. And when you do that in a club, then of course there has to be a board or a management that wants it and seeks it. And then when you do it, you have to be willing to how to say it, how to stand or fall with it, because you cannot change again. You know, you need to go through with your conviction, and I did, and it turned out really well for us.
When you moved into the first division, was there any change? Maybe not after the first year, but the second year, did you feel like you had to make a change that maybe affected the results, or?
Well, what happened in that club was that they had a very loyal base of players that had been fighting for this promotion for when we succeeded. It was like the fourth year.
Oh, wow.
They had the 2002, 3, 4, and 5 with fighting for promotion. And when they finally did, then, and this sounds maybe strange, and I've been thinking, why was it like that? But the fact is that many of these players had been loyal and been fighting for this for many seasons in a row. And when they did, then they suddenly became interesting for other clubs. And then at that time, you would expect that they would continue because they've reached the goal that they've been fighting for so long. But the opposite happened. And when they got attracted by other clubs, then suddenly 4 of the pillars in the team just went away. And it was no hard feelings, because people could understand that they wanted to go. One of them went abroad, and 3 others went to better Norwegian clubs. So it was like a testament that we had done well as well, that our players became interesting for other clubs. But it happened so that I had to rebuild the team for the first year in the top league. And I think we had, if I don't remember wrong, I think we had 11 new players in a squad of 22. So half of the squad was new in one window, in the winter window before the league opening in the top league. And so the team was more or less rebuilt, and it was with the lowest budget in the league. And we were, from the betting companies and the media and so on, I remember they spoke about us that we didn't have anything, because we played also in government-owned stadium that we rented. And I remember one of the newspapers wrote that they have nothing. They don't have a stadium. They don't have any players
Wow.
that anybody have heard about before, and even so with the coach. So the expectations was really low, and that was for us at that time. It was perfect.
My question is then, how do you manage expectations, or how do you get the players to believe in themselves, that they're going to perform well, even though everybody else is doubting them?
Well, this is very similar to what I experienced in Finland in last year.
Yeah.
So I have experience in that, and I find it, to be honest, I find it really easy. The first year is really easy because then it's us against them, and it's always like, if you lose, well, nobody demanded anything else, nobody expected anything else.
Yeah.
And then of course you don't say that to the players. You don't say that it's okay to lose because the opponent is blah blah better. But anyway, you know that you can always, you have that in like in the backhand all the time, that that I was not hard to to get. I was really looking forward to another chance as a head coach again, because now I've tried all the roles, from goalkeeper coach to fitness coach to assistant coach, player development coach, working in academies with from 12 years old, from 14, from 16. And I have to admit that what triggers me the most is to be head coach on the highest possible level. I want the competition, and you know, working 4 years with development, it's good, and you can develop yourself there as well. It's not even if you're a professional football coach, it's no rule says that you will be a good coach for a 15 or a 16-year-old, even how good he is or how ambitious he or she is. But I tried to develop there as well. But my conclusion is that what I like the most is the competition.
So what's it like being at IFK at this moment then?
Well, the last year was really good for us. Again, it was quite similar to Sandefjord, and I think actually it was also part of the reason why I got the job, because the sporting director got the notion that this guy has been doing what we want to do. He's been doing it with success before. So when he started to check a little bit about me, he got interested, and from there we started. And in 2018, IFK was semi-pro, playing in second tier in Finland, and they came up with quite an old team, and they decided that they were going to turn the operation to a fully professional operation in front of 2019, which meant that all these guys that had played the team up, that were in their 30s or around 30 years old, they had also civil careers, and for them it was not easy to quit. You know, they were in the start of their career as brokers or like whatever. They had, some of them had really good jobs in civil life. So they didn't have the possibility to quit working to start training in the morning or in daytime. So the team was, they had a huge turnaround and ended up with 28 contracts, all signed in the winter window of 2019, or just before and after Christmas, and 28 contracts, where 21 or 22 was new.
Oh wow!
So they kept just a handful of players from the original squad, and then went into to the Veikkausliiga, which is the top league is called, with a whole new team, and with me as a new coach. So probably looked from the outside as a huge gamble, or well, it was a gamble as well. But in Finland we play official games through the winter in the FA Cup in indoor, full-size indoor arenas. So I arrived there 15th of January, and our first official game was 29th of January.
Wow.
And I was met with a squad that, again, with the lowest budget in the league, was picked together I have to be careful not to say anything bad about
it wasn't
people,
easy.
but,
it wasn't easy.
No, it wasn't easy, and the sporting director hadn't paid any transfer fees, only free players. Some of them had made a name for themselves in the lower divisions in Finland. So it was like a lot of like hoping and wishing that that this guy and this guy could take the level and contribute. But we lost all the games. There were 5 cup games through the winter. We lost all 5 of them.
Tough.
And of course now again, then when the league opens in April, then we were tipped to go directly down again and to be the poorest team in the league. And we didn't take many rounds until we proved that we were not going to be easy to play against, and from there we built on, and we ended number 7 out of 12 in Finland in the debut season.
Thor, take me through, what does when does the league start in Finland? Like, when does preseason start? When does the league start? And when is like the market when you can re-sign players to the team? And and stuff?
Yeah, well, the main transfer window is the winter window in January, because then we start the preseason, and also then playing through preseason, playing official games in the domestic cup. Then league opens in April, and it plays all through summer, and it finishes in early November.
So January to April, you're in the domestic cup, right? So that
Yeah, but still also preseason then, because and that's the challenge, you know, that you are playing official games with the European spot at stake. You know, if you can win the cup, you qualify for Europe. So you have to take those games seriously. But my experience after being there 2 winters now is that well, if we were a richer club and had a bigger squad of more equal players, like that we could rotate a lot more and still win games, then we could do that. But the case with like us, the smaller clubs, we would have to play our strongest team all the time in order to be competitive. And if you do that, there is no room to do pre-season work with working with strength and conditioning, you know. So you have to always compromise all the time, and I'm getting a little bit tired of it, to be honest. And I'm not. I thought when I came that this is a good system because it makes the preseason more interesting, that you also play competitive games. But my experience is that if you want to win those games, then you have to, if the game is on Saturday, you know, the training already from Wednesday has to be directed towards the game. And if you want to do that, then there is no room for 3 or 4 sessions a week with strength and conditioning and other kind of work that, in my mind, you need. And I think Finnish football needs, because also compared to Swedish and Norwegian level, it's a little bit behind. And one of the things that is behind is the fitness level of the players.
So yeah, that's what I was going to touch base on, the comparison between Norwegian football and Finnish football. I mean, you've been able to be in an environment in Norway and also in Finland, and you touched base on like the fitness aspect. So what would you say is the biggest major factor, the difference between Norwegian football and Finnish football?
Well, first of all, we, like in Scandinavia, we compare Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and Finland. And during the last 10-15 years, there's been a tough competition between Norway, Finland, and Denmark. No, excuse me, Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, of who has the best club team, who does best in the European Cups, and even at national team level, they have been competing to a certain degree. But Finland has been behind that level. The 3 others have been like changing from year to year who is the strongest nation, but Finland has been some 20-30% behind that in level, I would say. And the reason, one reason, is that Finland is, I think this is probably like a quiz question, that it's one of 2 European nations where football is not the #1 team sport.
Okay.
Yes. Hockey's big. Yes.
Hockey is bigger.
Hockey's very
a
big.
lot bigger.
Yeah.
And I think the other nation is actually Lithuania, where basket is bigger. But I'm not 100% sure about that. But at least in Finland, hockey is bigger. The economy is a lot stronger in hockey, which means also that most talented youngsters tend to choose hockey before football if they are good in both sports. And maybe it's a higher prestige to be good in hockey than in football. So that's one obvious reason that the football is a little bit behind. And I think, well, that also reflects the economy, which is lower. The salaries are a lot lower than in Norway and Sweden. Actually, only around the half. I think top salaries in general in Finland is around the half of what it is in Norway.
Okay.
So that of course reflects also the level.
Yeah.
But then again, there are other differences as well, because they tend to play a little bit different style of football as well.
Yeah.
And was a little bit surprising to me, and find it interesting that the dominating club in Finland for many years has been HJK Helsinki. That's our big brother in Helsinki. We share the same stadium, but they are way ahead of us in merits and in economy. And they have been, for some reason, which I don't know historically, but they have been for some years now playing very possession-orientated football.
Yeah.
And with the dominance they've had, that has also led to coaches being assistants in Hoiko, then breaking out, getting their own top league team, copying it. So there has been like a tree of branches that spread out from the same culture or the same football. So all the best teams have been quite possession orientated and building all attacks from behind. Even if opponent is standing on the box line, they start goal kicks from behind, and they haven't been, in my mind, and the way I see football, they haven't been sharp enough on the counter-attacking.
Yeah.
And that has also led to that when you go out and play in Europe with that style, you meet teams that play exactly the same style, just doing it a little bit better than you. So when Hoiko has come out in Europe and tried to do the same, then they've experienced that they could not manage, and then they have to change to a more direct style when they play in Europe. But of course they won't manage that either, because that's not their primary style.
Yeah.
So as long as they've kept that style, it's been like a guarantee that you will never beat like a top Belgium or Dutch team, or what you need to beat, or Turkish team, when you come to the third qualifying round for the group stage in the Champions League, then you will meet teams like Galatasaray or Besiktas or Heerenveen or Feyenoord, or and you will never beat those teams playing exactly the same like they do. So that's been a problem for Finnish football to make anything happen in Europe. But then again, now for the Euros that was postponed by a year, Finland qualified for the first time. So it's really interesting times in Finnish football at the moment, because we are also eager to see what that does for the interest, that they finally have a national team that they can stand behind, and the support they had in this qualification, it just grew and grew, and it was fantastic in the end.
Massive.
They qualified by beating Luxembourg at home in Helsinki now right before Christmas, and people took to the streets, and it was fantastic. So and the country backing the football team like that hasn't happened before. So we lost the momentum a little bit with the Euros being postponed, but of course they just have to look forward to it for next summer now.
Yeah,
it's very positive. Now, Coach, I wanted to come back a bit to Norwegian football. Just have some questions. You guys were fairly strong in the 90s under Egil Olsen. Why was it that maybe Norwegian football couldn't keep that momentum?
Well, there will probably be some different opinions about that, but mine is very clear, and that is that football was really hard to play against. It was extremely low risk and very direct, and a lot of running and fighting and counter-attacking. Didn't play much through the middle. A lot of long balls. And their signature against an opponent in balance was the long kick, the long pass, and then coming after for the second ball. And Egil Olsen, he was also my professor when I studied football in the University of Sports in Oslo. And his influence was all the way back to Charles Reap in England, who was maybe the first statistician in English football.
Mhm.
He counted how many times you need to penetrate the opponent's 16-meter box in order to win a game, and found that the probability of winning the game was like 80% if you could penetrate the opponent's box more often than the opponent. So he studied it, and he was a fantastic leader, Egil Olsen. He managed to make it so simple for the players to see that this is the way, this is our possibility. This is, if we want to beat nations, top European nations, we have to be very different from them, and not doing like many others do, trying to be similar, but just achieving not to be good enough. So he had a fantastic leadership abilities and a very simple football, but it needed to be done 100% like they did. And then eventually, when opponents started to take Norway seriously, like they do when you come to finals and so on, then this football, in my mind, met its level. It was not possible to squeeze more out of it, and it was not possible to surprise the opponent in the same amount that they did in the early 90s. And then every other national team coach since then has been drawn between doing exactly the same and believing and hoping and thinking that we could reach the same by doing the same, and then also been pushed to try to develop the style in some direction that would make us more able to control the game also with the ball. And I think it's fair to say that nobody has been successful yet to find that formula.
Managing players and then like Solskjaer, Risa, Torrenge, Flo, motivating them to play with that style. Do you have any idea what that was like for him? Or?
Well, yeah, of course, all of us that were working in football, we followed it really closely, and but I think it's fair to say that what when you look back at it, you cannot take away anything from the leadership abilities of Egil Olsen. He managed to make them want to do it, even if they came right out of the dressing room of Alec Ferguson or Rafa Benitez or what it was. They knew that when they put on the Norway shirt, then this is how we do it, and they had results. So of course it made them proud as well. But you can imagine how different it must have been to switch between club teams and national team at that time. But they were loyal. And even when this football reached its level where it was not possible to go any further with that extreme style, then they tried at their best. And I think Egil Olsen, his personality and his way of doing it is that either you do it or you just call him and say, you want to see me again. Nobody would dare to come there and not be committed.
So now moving forward, in the present time, Haaland, Odegaard, Mats Daly, Sorloth, are we experiencing the golden age, I guess, of Norwegian football, the rebirth?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of us hoping and also thinking and seeing indications that there are some really, really good things going on. Of course, Haaland's or even Ødegaard, which was just a few years before him, was in a way unexpected. But now, when you see the level of the youngsters coming up, then you see that it was not coincidence, because now there are coming so much more good players with good skills, And I think it's down to our federation, who had been struggling for years with the educational system and with the fact that they didn't have a playbook or a style or a clear conscious on what kind of skills we want our coaches to work on, what should be the trademark of the Norwegian footballer. They were struggling for years to agree on that, but they have, and now we are starting to see the results. And you can also see it on if you look closely, both on the girls' side and the boys' side, on the national teams, on the back all the way down to the under 15s and 16s and so on, that we are now doing a lot better. And also when you study those games, we are now, we can compete with Portugal playing like Portugal, and that's something that we haven't seen before.
Well, would you say so now? Going back into the recruiting aspect and the players, I wanted to talk about. Would you say Scandinavian countries, or specifically Finland, would be a good place for young players like the age of 19, 20, looking to make a professional career move? Would that be a good place to start?
Yeah, in one way it is. Of course, it's not that easy to move abroad or to get into a club in Finland as a foreigner at that age if you have if you don't have anything to show for you but I would say that if you get in, then it's a really good place to be, because even though the level is a little bit lower, the style of football can actually benefit the development of players. And the fact that Dutch, Belgium, French, English clubs, all interesting European nations, they are scouting in Finland as well as in Norway and Sweden. So I'm not sure that they would think that the youngster from Finland would be less interesting than the one from Norway or Sweden. So in the eyes of the European clubs, Finland is a market that they need to control and need to know what's going on. So as a player to get out, because that is more or less the goal of every ambitious player in Scandinavia, is to get to a better league in Europe. And I think the possibility to do it from Finland is just as good as from Norway and Sweden. There is no limitation for EU nationalities on the other half of the squad. But if you go for non-EU, then you can only have 3 at the time in the game squad. Per game squad. You can hire as many as you want, but you can only nominate 3 non-EU players per game squad.
Okay.
And in Norway,
and then on top of that, there is a good list and a not so good list of non-EU players as well, because there are some trade. The Finnish government have some trade agreement with some African countries and some. So there are also a little bit differences between Africans and like Canadians and Americans are also on the bad list.
On the back
for some reason. So I have an American player and he's on the non-EU squad list.
How does that apply in Norway then, the foreign player rule, for me?
We are in Norway is actually a non-EU country as well, but they have I don't remember what it's called in English, but it's the same trade deal with EU that Luxembourg and Switzerland have as well. So it's considered almost like an EU country in some areas, and some others not. But in football, they've or in working life, then you will get work permit in Norway as an EU member.
Yeah.
But to be honest, right now, since it's some years I was involved in the top football in Norway, I'm not 100% sure about the quotas for the non-EC players.
Yeah. I guess my last question, speaking specifically to with players, so what do you look for in players, and specifically in positions like striker, midfielder, defenders? What are some things or traits in players that you look for that fits your team?
Yeah, that's also a big question. First of all, and I don't like to say that, because then immediately people will label me as a coach who is too much, who puts too much emphasis on the physical part of the game.
Yeah.
But I will say it anyway, because it's from my heart. I will never accept a player who doesn't believe that it's important to be able to run in football. And to me, it's also a matter of mentality.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to die on the pitch, no matter what your stamina is. But normally, if you have that mentality, then your stamina is good enough, because it's also a question of being willing to give everything. And I do physical testing. I tell players that, sorry, you need another 3 weeks or 2 weeks with specific fitness training. If they come to me and they don't have better stamina than a guy I can pick from the street, and then I tell them, sorry, you have to come to page 1 of the book, before you can start asking questions. So and I will do that until I finish and until I retire. So immediately, if I feel that players are lazy or looking for reasons not to run, then they will be less interesting for me. But enough said of that. You asked about skills and characteristics, and of course, the way football has developed now, there is no way around having quite a good overall skill level. We were talking about Norway in the 90s, and the team was partly selected among players who had just 1 or 2 traits that were really, really good, like extremely fast, or almost 2 meter tall and dominating in the air, or having a fantastic long kick. We had Bjørneby, the Liverpool left back, who could kick 75 meters without even running up to the ball.
Yes.
And then when it landed on the head of a guy, Jostein Flo, the bigger brother of Thor Flo, who was 197 tall, then they were there because they had specific traits. And I think that time is more or less gone. If you have a specific trait, that is also extremely important, but you cannot have other skills that are not developed. So the overall skill level has gone up a lot. You cannot survive in top football now if you are below average in one particular part of the game.
This is true.
But then again, look at Haaland, then you see that when you run, when you are like a Superman, when you put in the 4th gear, then of course this is also extremely important.
Yes.
All right, Coach, thank you. Before we wrap it up, we always like to have a question and answer period, put you on the spot a little bit. But so we'll see how you do. My favorite question to ask people in football is, Xavi or Iniesta? Who would you rather have to build your team?
I think I would say Iniesta.
That's what they always say.
They do.
Yeah, most people say
Iniesta.
I'm waiting for someone to say Xavi.
People maybe think that he has even more brilliance, in his creativity or his way of reading the game. But
Yeah.
again, I like the overall qualities of the other one. Yeah, I think he's fantastic.
Fantastic player. Would you, so as a manager then, what did you enjoy more, Pep's Barcelona or Zidane's Madrid?
Oh, that's not even a difficult question. For
Easy,
me,
yeah.
it's Pep all the way. Pep all
We
the way.
accidentally say Zidane. We accidentally say Madrid because they're Madrid fans. So
Yeah.
No.
Mm,
I am. I'm in the other end of Spain, and also, well, yeah. Even now, you probably understood that my style of football is not very similar to his, but I must say I'm really impressed,
mm,
both about his pioneering and his ability to stand by his
mm.
choices, and the way he handles the pressure. I admire that guy. There are some good leaders in top football now. We can
Yes.
start speaking about Klopp as well, who is also a fantastic leader, and I just enjoy watching the press conferences. I love it.
Now, being someone from Scandinavia, I got to ask, who's a better striker, Jari Litmanen or Ole Gunnar Solskjaer?
Wow, here I have to tread really carefully. But
Yes.
to be honest, it has to be Litmanen for me.
Yes, wonderful finisher.
I think he was brilliant, and I don't want to take anything away from Solskjaer and his finishing abilities and his mentality and so on. But I think Litmanen was one step up as a total footballer.
Mhm.
In terms of excitement in Norway, Odegaard or Holland, who you guys waiting on to bring a cup back?
That's also a tough question, and I think
Mhm.
people would be really divided.
Yeah.
First of all, both of them are joy to watch, and we are really Norwegians are really
Mhm.
proud of them
Mhm.
because it's insane that they are like figuring on the like top 10 list of European players around 20 years old. It's
Mhm.
Crazy.
they have brought a lot of attention to Norway the last 2 years, and that's fantastic. For me, I would probably say Ødegaard. But I'm a little bit biased because
Mhm.
his father was my player in Sandefjord. I know him very well, and I know a lot about
The family.
how he's been coaching his son
Mhm.
through the years
Mhm.
because he was a standout player when he was 12 and 14 as well.
Wow.
And I really admire the work they've done, and then also the character of the boy. Nothing, don't want to take anything about away from Erling Braut Haaland, but I think the maturity and the mentality of Ødegaard is something unique.
So, now, last one is a bit of away from football. Your municipality, I searched up, has produced 2 Norwegian prime ministers. Is there a politician in Mr. Thodesen?
Oh no, 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 not at all, not at all. I'm just now really irritated
Mhm.
with the new culture minister in Norway. So I'm about to tweet that can we get rid of this clown uh, because he's like he just entered the government, and now he's suddenly become an expert in football, and he's now these last 2 days been in the media telling that the National Health Institute says that they will recommend that you can start playing football again, and then this clown of a culture minister says that it's the least important thing that we need to start. So
Right.
so if it was up to him, it wouldn't be any football before Christmas in Norway, and I think he shows lack of respect for the fact that this is, of
Right.
course, for the masses, it's entertainment, and in that perspective, maybe not that important, but it's also about 2,500-3,000 jobs in Norway.
Yes.
So I would want our culture minister to take our business a little bit more serious.
Wonderful, Coach. I gotta say thank you. Thank you for taking the time with us. Really appreciate that.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, it was a pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Have you on again, all right?
We will do it.
For sure. Let me win the league in Finland first and then come home.
Hey, we'll come party, man. That's not a problem.
Awesome. Thank you again. Take care.
Okay.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.